placement, as you wish. Well guys, welcome to another video. It's been quite a long time. You know, me and my wife are trying to move into a new house, which we are now in. But since I still haven't quite set up my room that I'm going to be doing videos in, we're doing it here at this table with this amazing stuff set here. And I'm joined again by my friends Justin and Jared here for another review of a Star Wars movie. One that is very special. Special in a very specific
way.
kind of, yeah. I wasn't going to say that up front, but you know, it's applicable.
There's no use sugarcoating it. It's basically as blatant as it could be. It's an awful movie.
Yeah.
It's the worst one. I just have to get this out of my brain now. There's parts of it that are really good, and there's parts of it that are downright terrible. This is why we're going to make the convincing argument that this is the worst Star Wars movie. Because lots of people hate Phantom Menace, but while we thought a lot of bad things about that movie, it's not as bad as this one.
Not even close.
It's not even close.
I mean, at least anything that is produced by studios can be better than the holiday special. That was just a whole nother level of just shameful.
Does that count as a movie though?
But that at least had like the humor aspect of like all the weird and drugged out antics that they were going through.
Stir, whip, stir. Come on, faster all together now. Cooking can be fun.
Yeah, I can say I was laughing at that movie. I was not laughing at this movie. Like 90% of the time, even the funny moments, I was not laughing at.
It is kind of ironic because you have a movie that is trying so hard to be unique and innovative, because this was the first film ever to be fully shot on digital film cameras, not like necessarily digital camcorders like people can buy at Best Buy, but actual film cameras that are designed to be digital cinema.
Huh?
But I don't know about you guys, but rewatching this recently on this brand new TV that we got, this film looked like it was so transparent and so just digitized to the point where all the images just look so fake.
The whole droid factory part is a product of a blue screen. No, what's funny is if you watch the outtakes for the whole Star Wars saga that George Lucas released on the Blu-rays, there's a part where Natalie Portman is running through this obstacle course of blue, and she's on this soundstage, and she gets down under one of these things and starts laughing. She's like, "You can't be serious. This isn't going in the movie." And George Lucas was like, "Don't worry, it'll look good." It doesn't look good. And you can tell that it's blue screen junk that she's running through. It doesn't, like the animations that look when the droid arms are flying around, you can tell that they like stop while she's under them and then they keep moving right past her.
But you're right, Zach. You can really tell with how old this movie is and how old the graphics are. Like back in the day, you're like, well, at least it looks good. But it doesn't even have that excuse anymore because it feels like at least 90% of the environments that they're in at any given moment in time are completely edited in.
No, you're completely right. Like the worst. I mean, I feel kind of bad saying this because people worked really hard to make this movie and to make it look as good as it could. But honestly, turn on any news network that is available in your local channels, and the green screen they use for the weather report is better than this movie.
It's got a better version.
There's another part specifically. Remember that part where Mace Windu and Obi-Wan are walking in the Jedi Temple, and you can just tell that they're just walking in front of a blue screen, and Yoda is obviously CGI in this movie, which there was something whack when Phantom Menace came out. They used a puppet, and he looked like something out of a nightmare. They made it as bad as that sounds because I like Puppet Yoda. He didn't look very good, but they CGI'd him in the new versions. Anyway, they have CGI Yoda for the first time when this comes out, and he's like edited in. But you can tell that Ewan McGregor and Mace Windu are like walking on a treadmill in a blue room because they like stop, and then it's like just anywhere you look around, it's just like, boy, I can tell that Jedi that's animated in, he looks flat. Everything behind him looks flat. It's just not good.
Yeah, it was one of those situations where, again, this is like the first time they were ever really doing this. And so you can totally tell watching this movie that for everything that was going on screen, whether or not it was completely computer-generated imagery you're watching, or if it's like actors acting in front of blue screens, which is like 95% of this movie, by the way.
It's true.
You can totally tell that no one really knows what they're doing because they're just playing around with things and trying to figure it out. But that doesn't work for a movie that is hyped up by millions of people.
Yeah.
And then you watch it and it's like, ugh.
There's just so much lack of direction. Like, all the time, you feel like if this moment was handled better, this would have been a better scene. Like, you can even take the same writing for a lot of it, not for all of it. I'm namely thinking of like every part with Anakin in it, that the writing cannot be saved. But for a lot of the scenes where you're like, oh, this isn't a very good scene nowadays, like, if it had been handled better, cinematography, or if they just like handled the writing area around it a little bit better, that could have been a great scene that we'd be looking back at today as like, this is good Star Wars. But just every single thing, they take all these concepts that could be great, and they just somehow threw them into a blender and destroyed every single one of them, in my opinion.
Yeah, it really is sad that was the case, especially because this was the movie where it was really supposed to set up why Anakin was starting on his path towards the dark side. And what do we ultimately get?
Whiny.
You can see it from the first scene with him in the elevator with Obi-Wan. He's being this absolute just teenager that you hate. He's one of those teenagers that you want to punch. You don't want to like be a mentor to this kid. I worked at a school, and if I saw a kid like this, I'd be like, I'm going the other direction because I want nothing to do with this kid. He's being a brat from the first 2 seconds. Meanwhile, they're both offering mounds of exposition with every line. And through this exposition, you're like, wow, he really doesn't look any better with all of that.
They go up the elevator, and Anakin's like visibly like just awkward, and Obi-Wan's like poking fun at him. That part's kind of funny because Obi-Wan's like acknowledging the fact that Anakin looks like a sociopath. And he's just like, dude, relax, you're sweating. And he's like, I don't know, I haven't seen her in 10 years, Master. And he's like, dude, shut up. He's just like poking fun. The whole scene where he's talking to, he goes in the elevator, goes in to talk with Padme. There's like a couple parts where Obi-Wan just roasts Anakin in front of everybody. Nobody laughs because they're not supposed to. But I remember going,
It's supposed to be a serious moment.
I remember going,
That's the thing, Obi-Wan is like the best character in the prequels because he's got bite to him. He can make fun of people and is the most awesome thing ever.
Like, I feel like that's the one redeeming aspect to this film, is everything that had to do with Obi-Wan. He looked like he was genuinely enjoying himself, not just trying to play a character. Like, he was having fun with it. And even when his lines were atrocious, like when he's arguing with Anakin, I'm not doing this again with you, Anakin. But like, even when he's doing these really bad lines, he's still got kind of like smile on his face. He's just like enjoying himself. He looks like he's just sitting back and having the time of his life being in a Star Wars movie.
Exactly.
Ewan McGregor does a really good job as Obi-Wan, by the way. He's the best part of this whole movie.
He really is. One of my favorite moments in the whole movie is where he shows like the most personality, because not a lot of the actors were directed to show that much personality in this movie. They look very flat. But there was a moment specifically towards the end when they have like the gladiator fight type scene in Geonosis. Mm-hmm. After he throws the spear into that the creature with the spike legs.
Exactly.
Like, he has this giant smile on his face, like thinking that he's won everything. But then when the creature pulls out the spear and snaps it in half, he has this look like, oh shoot. It's like little moments like that. We needed more of that, not more of the, I truly, deeply love you.
And just like Justin mentioned with the whole scene on Camino where he's just trying to, he has the subtlety of like a big potato, just like trying to pretend that he's, yeah, this is what I was sent here for. You've been waiting. And you can tell because he's like, oh, Master Sifo-Dyas, he died 10 years ago. But yeah, I'm here to see the clothes. And even with this, he's just like having a blast and just showing expressions on his face. And his conversations with other people like Jango Fett, like, you ever been to Coruscant lately?
I know you are the bounty hunter without saying it.
I'm being as blatant as I can in this moment, and you can see it on my face. But
speaking of which, I don't remember his name. Jango Fett's actor. I don't remember.
Tamora Morrison.
Just because I didn't want to butcher his name. But that guy, he does it awesome as Jango Fett. I really like him. Mm-hmm. And the fact that he gets plastered in episode 3 as the faceplate for all of the clone troopers, he does a really good job being like this hardened bounty hunter that's I'm a simple man and just trying to make my way in the universe. When really he could have, like, he takes it to Obi-Wan in, like, the next scene where they're together. He, like, fights hand-to-hand with Obi-Wan. He really gets into it. Oh, and the other part when he spins the gun after he shoots the Jedi, he's like, bah, 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 bah. The Jedi just dies, by the way. He just, like, sacrifices himself. He jumps up trying to be, like, awesome, and he just dies. He gets blasted by Jango Fett, and he dies, and Count Dooku looks back at him like, thanks, bro. And he twirls his gun around like a cowboy and puts it back in his holster.
I love how non-professional is. He's talking with his kid. He's like, well, he's not coming back from that one, is he, son? And Boba Fett's laughing in the background. It's like, he looks like your average dad, a cool dad that you want to hang out with, not like this overly dramatic individual.
It's like so many of the characters in this movie, you just can't fathom the creative choices that were made with them. Like, there are a lot of cool moments, like especially with, like I said, Obi-Wan and the Fets. That was some really cool stuff. But then going back to like the main point of this movie, you know, with it being kind of like the romantic side of where Anakin and Padme became a thing, and they got married in the end. It's just like, there's nothing there.
I was looking at the scene, and I actually rewinded the movies for this moment. I was looking at the scene where they had their first kiss. And it was in the middle of just the opening Naboo segment, and he had just gotten into an argument, and she chewed him out in front of the queen and all of the royal people at the palace.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like the second time that happened, too. Like, with Jar Jar and her handmaiden and stuff like that, anyway.
And so she chews him out, and then they go to her palace, and then the next moment, they're just standing next to each other. He says something awkward, and they look at each other and they kiss. There is zero chemistry. There is zero reason why she could possibly want to kiss him in this moment.
You know what made that scene hilarious, though?
Besides him kissing her like a dog?
Yes.
He was licking her face.
And I only barely noticed this because when I was rewatching this the other night, my wife came home from work and we were sitting here on the couch, you know, just making fun of the cringy moments of this movie. What makes that kiss even better, if it wasn't already cringeworthy, is like the music is crescendoing and it's getting more intense as they're like getting into the kiss. But then immediately as Padme pulls away, the music just stops.
No.
So like it's supposed to be kind of this awkward moment where like,
Oh.
No.
Sorry, how can we mention this moment? This is the I hate sand moment.
This is the iconic, terrible Star Wars writing ever. The part where he goes,
I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating, and it gets everywhere.
The best part is that George Lucas thought this was really good because he would tie it into, not like here on Naboo where things are soft. And then he kisses her. Like, that's the big romantic pickup line.
Yep.
I hate sand because it's rough, but you are not rough. You're not sand. Let's make out.
So I did the smart thing, and I had my wife watch 4, 5, and 6 first to get her hooked, and then she watched the other ones. But before she had watched episode 2, I was talking with one of my friends down in Tempe, and my wife was there, and we were of the same general idea that this movie's bad. But she was like, well, what's so bad about it? And I had to quote that one line. This is one of the lines from the movie. It's rough and irritating, gets everywhere. And she was like, that's not in the movie. You're pulling my leg. You're kidding. I was like, I am most certainly not kidding. And we watched this, and I was like, I paused the movie. I was like, come watch this with me right now. So she stopped what she was doing, and we sat down and we watched it. She was just like, you know, this reminds me of Twilight. All of the weird stuff that's in Twilight, the bad direction, the writing, all that stuff that makes Twilight laughable on when you watch it, it encapsulates the Twilight saga in that one line. And she was just like, this is just like Twilight, but Star Wars. And I was, as bad as that is to admit it, that is exactly what this movie is. The teen drama, weird stuff that Twilight is. No offense to people who like Twilight, but that's what it is.
That question for you.
Sure.
if the first movie had Anakin actually as like a teenager, as like around the same age as Padme, and they had actually developed that kind of repertoire in the first movie, how do you think that having all these lines in the second movie unchanged would have been better? Because there's lines where she's talking about how I've been dying every day since you came back into my life. And other times when I've been dreaming about her since we parted ways. Would that make more sense if he had been a teenager or at least a young adult when they had parted ways as opposed to a 9-year-old child?
I think it would have at least made it less creepy.
Yes.
But I think thinking about those lines in context of just what's going on, regardless of Anakin's age, it's still weird. Because when you think about it, you know, they set it up pretty blatantly from the beginning that Anakin had been apart from Padme for 10 years.
10 years.
And
it's not a short amount of time.
Yeah.
After spending 2 days with her as a child.
Yeah. And me and someone else commented on this the other day. You know, Anakin was stuck in a situation where he literally had no contact with women for like 10 years, at least we can assume. Because he's with Obi-Wan, he's learning about the Force, and we learned that the Jedi can't have romantic relationships with women. So, or vice versa, like the women Jedi can't have relationships with the male Jedi. And then you realize that this guy has no idea how to talk to girls. And so these lines, like, they make sense kind of within the context of understanding who Anakin is, but in the delivery of it, it's just awkward, and you have no idea how this girl, who is a well-worn politician, was a queen and now a senator, has probably met a ton of other guys in that meantime.
She's a professional diplomat, so she knows how to communicate with
Yes! Like, in that context, it doesn't make sense that this guy who's saying that she's been haunting his dreams for 10 years, how does that work?
He's so cringy and melted away, her diplomat, to where she finally liked him at the end when they go to Geonosis. He spent so much time in Naboo being just a whiny, weird guy that she finally had pity on him and reciprocated feelings.
I don't know how she can possibly have pity on him, because she like talks about how she's angry that she's getting taken away from her job and her duties here and has to be sent into hiding. And so he tells her, oh, but we can't let our pride get in the way. And then he immediately, after telling her that her feelings don't matter on this subject because she needs to stop letting her pride get in the way, he starts going into this prideful rant about Obi-Wan's keeping him back and holding him back from being as powerful and amazing as he should be.
It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
And she just kind of like, stop looking at me like you're looking at me right now. And she keeps packing her bags. And that's like the entire scene that's in. And I'm like, how on earth do you go from this to kissing the guy in like a couple days' time?
I would consider this movie and The Last Jedi to be comparable in terms of story structure, to where like there are multiple plot points and story beats that are being like juggled at the same time, and they all converge in the end. But this one, like, you know, people will say what they want about The Last Jedi, because I know all of us have our different opinions on it. But this movie, the way that it like handles those storylines together and tries to make it work in the end, especially with us trying to make us believe that those two are a thing, it just doesn't work.
I find it funny that you bring up Last Jedi, because I was actually making a bit of a comparison to that myself. Because Last Jedi has, like, it starts off with all the characters in one location, and then it branches off into two major storylines.
Kind of like Empire Strikes Back, too.
Mm-hmm. Kind of like Empire Strikes Back. It's kind of a common theme about the second movie of each trilogy.
Yeah.
But what I was thinking here is that with Last Jedi and with this one, there's one of these two plots is generally considered the better plot. Last Jedi, it's the Luke and Rey and Kylo area.
I agree.
And with this one, Obi-Wan, we've had nothing but good things to say about the Obi-Wan segment of this movie. But the other section is where people have the issues, like everything with Anakin and Padme.
And then Finn and Rose. If we're judging this on a tier of 3, if we're gonna do Attack of the Clones, Last Jedi, the best one being Empire Strikes Back. Like, you're never bored during Empire Strikes Back, right? There's not a cringy point. Han and Leia have their thingy in the Millennium. They have their thing in the Millennium Falcon.
Chemistry.
And they have chemistry, and it's funny to watch Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher pull it off really good.
Well, part of the reason was because they're actually dating in real life at one point.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
But
well, they pull it off. We'll just leave it at they did a good job with it. And it wasn't boring, and you have the whole asteroid field part, and you have Luke and Yoda, and Luke learning how to be a Jedi, and Last Jedi you have Rey with Luke and her learning about the Force, and you have Rose and Finn go to Canto Bight, which is kind of weird in and of itself, but it's okay because Finn learns why he has to be part of the Resistance. It's kind of a weird thing. But then you have this one where the Obi-Wan one is really good, and you have the other one where you're just like, okay, let's fast forward to the Obi-Wan part. We don't need to watch this.
It's like a series of, well, this needs to happen because it technically needs to happen for the story of Anakin, like the general plot. Like, obviously they need to fall in love. How are we going to make them fall in love? We'll just force it in there somehow. He needs to lose his mom. Well, how are we going to make him lose his mom in an emotional way? Well, force it in there somehow. It's just a bunch of forced.
Although I do think that is one of the better parts of this movie, like, because it gives weight to Anakin's situation. You know, his mom dying and everything. And the scene is effective because the music, the acting is actually pretty good. And I like the way it was incorporated into the story, but I don't know, that's probably one of the brighter spots of it all.
I disagree. I was not a fan of the entire scene. The only thing I liked about them being on Tatooine in the first place is when Anakin comes up and sees C-3PO for the first time, because that's the most human reaction we see from Anakin in the entire movie.
That is
Greetings, I am C-3PO? Like, it was just so unnatural, like, oh my goodness, C-3PO, like, I know you.
And yet the droids still have the more human reaction.
Well, then, the best part about that, actually, in that scene, I mean, besides Anakin going, 3PO, is C-3PO immediately recognizes him and he goes, oh, the Maker! And you're just like, C-3PO! Yeah!
Although, also, Joel Edgerton is in this movie, too.
Yeah.
Okay, so I completely forgot about it. I was like, what is he doing here? And he's like, I guess I'm your stepbrother. And he doesn't say anything else for the rest of the movie. That I could be wrong, but I think that's the only line.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I guess I'm your stepbrother. And it's like, oh, good thing this was your... I looked it up. He had only had, to my knowledge, from what I could find, he'd only had one movie up to this point. So he was relatively a no-name. So I'm glad that this is like... was his I was gonna say his like baseline for his career, because he's gone on and done better movies since now, or since then. But I'm really glad that this was just like his one part that was like, oh, he must have been in a Star Wars movie. Let's cast him at this, and he completely rose to the occasion above what this movie is.
Yeah, the same goes for Rose Byrne, who shows up very briefly in the beginning as Padme's handmaiden.
Oh yeah,
she has like one line. Are you alright, my lady? I thought we've kind of gotten through the plot lines that we've.
Wait. There is one part of this. There's one part of this movie that we haven't talked about. That's the part where they're going through the asteroid field.
Oh, take it away.
When Jango Fett drives through the asteroid field, there's two parts. Number one, it was trying to be Empire Strikes Back asteroid field, which didn't do it for me. Number one,
because there's no music.
Yeah, there's no music until the latter half of it, but I'll get to that in a second. There's one cool part in this whole thing. The second part is when Anakin and Padme are driving through. Conveniently, the asteroid field is like way smaller, and they're like way above it. It's like, oh, we didn't actually have to go through the asteroid field.
Going through the rings of Saturn is like they just happened to fly exactly through the ring.
But there is one cool part that it is every time that I watch this movie, I'm like, ooh, I gotta have the sound up for this part. When Jango Fett drops the seismic charges in the asteroid field, that is by far one of Ben Burtt's best sounds that he's ever like orchestrated for Star Wars. Minus probably the Millennium Falcon sound that they use when it flies by, the lightsaber sound, blaster sound in and of itself. That one's really cool. But that sound is one of the best sounds in all of Star Wars. Like, that was one of my first notes when I sat down and I was thinking about it. I was like, seismic charge, bomb sound. Ba-boom.
I love that particular sound, but in that entire scene, the sound design was just excellent. From the laser blasts that were just exploding in the air around Obi-Wan.
And when he's moving around, it's like...
And when he's moving around, even to the sound of him opening up his rocket pods.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was like just a whirring mechanical sound that I noticed this time because I was listening for sound design. And it just like, it sounded so real. It sounded so like impactful. It wasn't like a lot of the movie where it's just like, oh, like throw in a little sound and they keep moving on. Like every single thing had an impact in that scene.
Also, I really love the hum of the Slave One's engine too. It was so good to where they even went back and added it into the special edition version of Empire Strikes Back.
Yes.
One of the few good changes, because that engine sound is really cool.
It is. Like,
yes.
The entire scene has just absolutely incredible sound design.
The sound is really where Star Wars gets kind of its flavor. If you look at any of the movies, there's always like 2 or 3 scenes in the movie where you're just like, dude, that sound is awesome. Mm-hmm. Like, when you have the lightsaber fights, by the way, well, I'll talk about the lightsaber fight. I have one more thing about that at the end with Count Dooku. But,
oh boy.
But the sound design is really cool in all of the movies, really. But like when they're doing the speeder chase, and the Obi-Wan and Anakin are riding the speeder, they're following behind her, and her speeder's like, and then the other one's like, right behind it. It sounds like an old car.
Uh-huh.
It sounds really cool. I really like the sound design in this movie. That's a good thing about this one.
Yes.
Sound design and music. Like,
yeah, that's true.
John Williams brought his A game to this one,
Absolutely.
even if a lot of other things didn't.
Yeah. Like, even talking about the romantic thing, which is the whole point of this movie, is to establish that romance between Anakin and Padme. Across the Stars is one of the best Star Wars songs, in my opinion.
It's
yes.
true.
Because it is just, like, you can feel the emotion from the song, even if there's no emotion between the characters.
Separate from the movie, and it's great.
Yeah. Yep. The Count Dooku part where they go in and they're fighting, and Anakin, we'll take him together. No, I'm taking him now. And Anakin just gets blown away by the Force lightning, just blasted to the side.
And then didn't even spare him a thought.
Yeah, and then they're fighting, and Obi-Wan gets knocked out, and he doesn't get killed. He just like gets stabbed in the arm and the leg, and he's like, "Oh, I'm really hurt." And Count Dooku's about to kill him, and Anakin walks in and he goes, "I thought you would have learned your lesson, boy." He's like, "I am so learned." Like, his trash talk during saber fighting is weird. And then he cuts to, like, lights, and, like, the whole scene is just them swinging lightsabers in front of their face without actually, like, making contact.
Oh, yeah, and it's close-ups, too, so it's like... It basically even took that and was just like...
Like, it was showing the blue on one side, red on the other side. And
he's like, oh, it's good versus evil. Look at this, guys. Blue and red.
How angry Anakin can be. This is cinematography right here.
No.
It just looks bad.
Yeah.
That scene is
I feel bad dogging on this movie so much because, you know,
I had to watch it. I didn't feel bad at all. This is 2 hours of my life that I just wasted.
Well, yeah, yes, but in all seriousness, though, like, you know, you look at movies and there's so much hard work put into them that, you know, for us to just sit here and to complain about it, you know, it kind of discredits the work that was put into it in a way. But I mean, I don't know. There's just so much here that just doesn't work.
I feel like we're being fair to the parts that actually are good in this movie. But no matter how much effort the people put into this movie, that doesn't make it an automatically better film.
Oh no, absolutely not. I just
and so like I feel like with you, I feel bad that their name is attached to this movie, which is a dumpster fire of Star Wars content
qualities. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I do feel bad about that, but talking about it and talking about these things that we find positive and negative, like, fire away. This doesn't deserve me holding back.
No.
Even if the guys did work extremely hard on it.
There's a whole subplot in this where Yoda and Mace Windu are sitting in that one room, And he's like, Mace goes,
I think it is time we inform the Senate that our ability to use the Force is diminished.
you're just like, you should. And then Yoda goes, we shouldn't tell them because that would ruin everything. It's like, of course.
There's two moments like that they have like this kind of self-awareness that would be really good in an actual like good written film. Like Yoda talks about how there's so many Jedi with an issue of pride right now. And there's so many Jedi, and like the whole diminished Force comment. Like, if this was a well-written film, those would be a great setup for the fall of the Jedi. But it's not a well-written film. It's just like...
And the Clone Wars TV show had to make up for all of that stuff pretty much.
They had to do 2 Clone Wars TV shows to make up for all of the nonsense in this one.
Let's put a pin in that and wait an hour and a half, and then you'll see episode 3, and you realize that we suck.
Right.
And everybody will realize that we suck, and we'll just get destroyed.
Like, seriously, none of the Jedi show any intelligence at all in this movie. Like, from Jocasta Nu, the librarian, who is just a complete jerk. If it's not in the systems, it doesn't exist.
Remember that scene in Empire Strikes Back where Han is asking that one deck officer guy if Commander Skywalker has shown up yet? And he's like, well, I don't know, he could have checked out in the South Gate. Well, why don't you go find out what's getting dark now?
Also, what's up with that gravitational pull thing? Like, you can tell from this map that all the stars are centered around this one planet, but you can't tell that there's something actually there? Like, what kind of technology are the Jedi using here?
Oh yeah, and the fact that a kid was able to figure that out, and not the master librarian of the Jedi archives? Like,
this 4-year-old's like, oh,
Master? It's because someone erased it from the archive memory.
no wonder Yoda hangs out around the kids, because they're the only competent Jedi in the entire temple.
Oh my gosh. It's not untrue, though.
I liked how their giant Star Destroyer ships had no weapons whatsoever. I didn't notice that until this time, but their entire point was to just drop off the troops. Like, their only attack force was the gunships. That was it.
What? Wait, I thought you were talking about the droid ones.
No, the clones. The Star Destroyer looking ships, they did not shoot a single bullet during the entire battle. You see them like dropping onto the ground to let all these troops out, and then they're just like flying through the air doing nothing.
You know why they didn't have weapons though? It's because if they did, the battle would be over too quickly. There'd be no action scene.
I was gonna say, then the Trade Federation people wouldn't be able to escape.
And there'd be no episode 3.
Fire them now.
The Jedi have a master new yummy.
Don't get me started on.
I love Count Dooku, by the way. He's like, that's impossible. The Republic will pay for this treason. Like, you're the traitors. Why are you talking about the Republic being...
The whole part with the clone trooper, the clones, when Obi-Wan comes up and like, they're like, we've been expecting you. He's like,
I'm expected?
And he just takes everything like a complete champ.
That's good news. The army. That's why I'm here.
And then he said back to like, dude, do you guys have any idea what's going on here? And the Mace Windu and Yoda are like, sure, we got you. Then they turn off the thing and they're like, we don't know what we're doing.
No idea. Council ever authorized the use of a clone army?
No.
Are there any comments that we want to make on the very final 15 minutes of this movie that kind of make the previous 2 hours worth it-ish?
Big gun, the Clone Wars have. Oh, well, no.
Okay, the one scene, the scene with the Imperial song playing in the background.
Oh,
as
that
it
actually
shows
was
the
really
clones getting into the troops, getting into the troop ships and everything. That scene was excellent. Like you could, because it's showing all these just blank faces, the Star Destroyer prototypes like flying off in the background, and you can just see the scale of this war that's about to begin. And you're like, yes, this is Star Wars. This is big. And it's only for one scene, and so that's why it hurts so much, because this one scene is so good.
Well, at least there's the Clone Wars show to basically fill that in, though.
I know, yeah. Speaking of which, numbers-wise, they say that there's 250,000 clone troops ready, and there's 1 million more on the way. So you have an entire galaxy-spanning war with about 1,250,000 troops.
That's a good point. You know, you think about like the American troops in World War II, the American force was bigger than that.
And we're not on an entire galaxy. We're in 2 theaters of warfare.
Well, also you gotta think that time went past, and I can't imagine that they just stopped making clones. But that does seem kind of odd.
It takes 10 years to grow a clone into fruition. And there was not.
Wait a second.
There
the
was
math
not 10 years. No.
The math does not work for this.
There's a lot of
what the heck?
I noticed the numbers inconsistencies with this movie.
What the?
Like,
oh my gosh! I totally didn't think about that.
Even when they went to go try and save Anakin's mother, they took 30 people out a month ago, and only 4 people came back. At what point do you say, okay, she's gone? We've lost 24, 26 people at this point, and she still survived a month trapped with the sand people, and then right after Anakin arrives, oh, Anakin.
So I was watching that part specifically, and she flops back her head, she doesn't an actual whole body flops her neck. Yeah, flops her neck back. And my wife goes, "Whoa, that must have hurt." I was like, seriously though, look at that, because his arm's bracing her, so really it's her neck, taking the whole force.
That's a good point. Yeah.
She's like. She could have snapped her own neck on that part.
Yeah, she actually died, so that was very unfortunate.
Oh man. Well, good acting on the actress's part, though, to hold that pain in her neck just while she's hanging there.
Well, Anakin's having his whole meltdown right there, so she's like, "Come on, scene end, scene end, scene end."
She's counting off this Speaking of which, we missed the whole meme part of this part. Not just the men, but the women and the children.
I killed them. I killed them all. They're dead. Every single one of them. And not just the men, but the women. And the children, too. They're like animals, and I slaughtered them like animals. I hate them.
It's just
and that part will infuriate me because he says all this stuff and he admits to just committing genocide on this tribe of sand people.
And what does Padme say? Yeah.
To be angry is to be human.
It's human to get angry.
What?
I'm sorry, we had mini Adolf Hitler over here. I guess that's a human quality, and we should hug him now because he's angry.
It's okay, guys. We live in a society today where people will get offended if you get angry at them, so we have to coddle everyone.
Padme was getting angry at the senators for getting angry at each other. She has no place to not judge Anakin.
Well, to look at the Clone Wars show again, Padme's character in that is exactly 100% opposite of who she was in that scene.
Yes.
Especially in every single Senate encounter that they're in. She is chewing out all these people in public for being against the war and trying to save people and doing what's good for humanity, and then she's like, "Oh, you killed a bunch of these people, a bunch of tribals. That's okay. We all get angry sometimes. We all have murderous outbursts."
She's the leader of the opposition. She is the #1 person who hates violence.
Yeah.
And yet she hugs the guy who just slaughtered children and women and men that weren't doing anything.
But it's okay, because the screenplay needed her to be sympathetic towards Anakin so they could get together and have babies. So as you can see, this Attack of the Clones is a movie. A movie that exists.
That is definitely true.
We appreciate those who like this movie and will do their best to defend it, because everyone is allowed to have their opinion, especially on Star Wars. We just want you guys to know that we personally don't like it.
We hate it.
And even as the sequels come out and anger some people, that doesn't mean that because the sequels come out and you don't like them, that the ones that came before were good.
That's true.
No matter how many memes you make of these movies, they're not going to automatically be better for them.
That is legitimately a thing, though.
Yep.
People think these movies are good solely because of memes.
Yes.
No.
That is seriously a thing.
No,
it is.
No.
It is.
No, but they're wrong. It's they're allowed. Listen,
you're allowed to have your opinion.
You're allowed to
have your objectively wrong.
What did one of my teachers one time said? No, who said it? Oh, it was my dad. My dad goes, you're allowed to have your wrong opinion. If you want to make memes about the movie, I'll laugh at them, but I'll disagree that it's better than... Because if they're arguing that this is better than the original trilogy, they need to stop what they're doing and
rethink their life.
Yeah. Speaking of which...
Yes!
Speaking of which, if you are making memes to make this movie better, you need to go home, rethink your life, and go watch the originals and bathe yourself in the best part of Star Wars that... It's just...
But I want to go home and rethink my life.
I literally ran it. Yeah.
Well, so we graded the last review that we did with Phantom Menace. What would you give the Attack of the Clones? Honest grade, not just you being like an angered troll. Just like, honestly, be honest about your opinion, because you said a lot of things about this movie, but we have to be fair and objective.
What was the scale that we used? Or we all used our own scale.
I used a letter grade, but I think you guys did points, right?
I did out of 10.
Alright, so out of 10, I would give Attack of the Clones a 4.3. Or 4.5, let's go with
fair enough. Okay.
I think I'm probably hanging around that same thing. Probably 4.5. Because it's, like, if you give it a 50, that's kind of too much for what it is. It's got to be like a 45%, 4.5, which for me.
There wasn't enough Obi-Wan for it to be 50% good. There's too much.
I would honestly give this movie a D, which would be like 2 out of 10 on my scale. Like, while we were watching this movie the other day, like, it just confirmed to me so many of the things that I just didn't like about it. And there are good qualities to it, and they put their effort into making this something epic.
Yep.
But on fundamental screenwriting levels, it just didn't work for me.
I wrote a list of good things, bad things, and noteworthy things. And I honestly going into this movie again, I figured, well, I'm probably just going to have like 1 or 2 good things. I ended up having about like 12, 13, 14
I had a lot
things that I wrote.
I had a lot more good things I thought I was going to have.
Granted, I had over like 45 bad things for the 12 good things that I had written, but like there were good quality parts of this movie that I genuinely was like, you know, this is Star Wars. This is something that I grew up and I loved as a kid and I still love now. But then it would just go back to the parts that I was not a fan of. And...
Well, you know, the good thing is that every review we do from here on out for Star Wars, they're going to get better.
Yeah.
Everything, like, regardless of how people feel about the latest one that came out, episodic film, anyway, all of them are still better than this. So it's going to be...
It can only go up from here.
Yeah, it can only go up from here. So, you know, there's the Clone Wars show, there's Revenge of the Sith after this, you know, it's good. Thanks again, Jared and Justin, for coming here on this review.
You bet.
We'll be back next month.
Yes. Well, actually, next month, I'm going to be reviewing the Clone Wars show with someone else. But I will have these guys again for Revenge of the Sith. It'll be a blast.
Excellent.
And
there's a lot to talk about now.
well, it'll be good to talk about good Star Wars again.
I agree.
It'll be good. Thanks again for watching this. Sorry for the lack of videos lately, but there will be more coming soon, I promise. The next one being a review of How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. And if you like this review, please subscribe. Also check out my Facebook and Letterboxd pages linked in the description below. And you guys have a great day. Thank you.
See you later.
May the Force be with you.